Welcome to Living in the Past, where two middle-aged dudes relive their past by enjoying the pop culture of their youth. Oh, Devin, are you ready to freeze your ass off, fall prey to paranoia, and be absorbed by an alien?
Jeremy, it'll be like my honeymoon all over again. I can't wait, Jeremy.
Yeah, we're doing the 1982 classic horror film, The Thing. It's October. We're going to focus on some scary movies this month. The Thing is the first one. We're doing the next episode we got coming up in a few weeks is Friday the 13th, Part 4. Our patrons voted for that to be what we cover. So I'm pumped, man. I'm excited for this month.
I cannot wait to be so freaked out that I will not sleep for an entire 31 days, Jeremy. I haven't been this excited since the last time I was this excited.
Oh, man. So The Thing it has a really special place in my heart. When it comes to horror films, it might be in my top top three. Like it's up there.
Yes.
I adore it. In a week, my cousins are coming to my house. I have a board game called Who Goes There, which is a phenomenal game of paranoia, but it's based on The Thing is based on this novella called Who Goes There by John Campbell. And, the board game is exciting. It's wonderful. It's so much fun. If you're listening to this and you're looking for a board game to play, check out the board game called Who Goes There. But man, The Thing is just kind of always around. I taught my son is so interested in it. He's never seen it. He's actually going to get to see it for the first time tonight. And so he knows I was doing this episode, and he's like, "Can I please, Dad?" He's in 4th grade. "Please let me watch it." Of my kids, he's the one that can kind of handle stuff like that. So I'm like, "Yeah, I'll watch it with you. I can do that." So we're queuing it up tonight, Devin. So I'm excited, but. This movie, like, when did you first get exposed to The Thing?
Wow, that's a hell of a question, Jeremy.
I'm a pro, Devin. I'm a pro.
Yeah, I distinctly remember. I was at Scott Odell's house down the street. Scott Odell's house down the street. It was on VHS. It was his birthday party. So I'm guessing, when did The Thing come out on VHS? It was probably a year or so later, so 83, 84-ish, somewhere in there. We were at Scott Odell's. We watched back-to-back. We watched Alien and The Thing back-to-back. That was a hell of a birthday party as however old I was at that time,
That's special, dude. That's legit. That's legit stuff.
Yes. What about you, though? You didn't see this in the theater, did you?
No, I wanted to sneak in and see it, but I wasn't that clever. That comes a few years later in the 80s.
Yes.
I it's similar to you. In 84, 83 maybe. It probably was 84. I think I was in 4th grade, 83, 84. So I saw it as a 4th grader.
Yeah.
And it was like so many of us. It was a spend the night party. It wasn't a birthday party, and then it was just a bunch of us in the summer spending the night, and we went by the rental place and we grabbed it. So so it freaked me the hell out, but I adored it. It was this weird simultaneous, this is the grossest thing I've ever seen. I'm in love with this movie. Like it truly did. It worked me over. And, I think nostalgia always plays a role in the movies we love from our past. And it is something that it just grows I just grow in my love for it. But I always think back to that first night with my buddies, John and Bob and Todd, and we were like hanging out and, watching The Thing, and we would laugh, and there's some great out loud laughing moments, and then there's just some true terror, and man, that's a bonding moment with my buddies, and I'll never forget it. And I think that's what makes it special, is being scared with your friends. At least that's how I feel.
Well, and I think that you bring up something that it shouldn't be overlooked here, and we're breaking this down as a horror movie, and at the same time, there's not a lot of horror movies out there that Well, either one, they don't bring comedy into it, or they don't do comedy well. It's so cheesed out that it's just like, oh, roll your eyes. But I think that's one of this things with kind of some of the one-liners and some of the situations. They actually set up some pretty decent comedic moments for the genre of this film.
Yeah, there's some great stuff that even today I just still laugh out loud when I see it. You know, I wasn't super I was actually really familiar with The Thing. My dad, just an amazing guy, and he showed me the 1950, I think it's 51 classic.
Yeah, 51,
The Thing from Another World.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Howard Hawks produced that, and it was, you know, I loved it. It was, my dad saw it in the theater when he was a kid, and to him, the 1951 Thing is what the 82 Thing is to me, you know, and he showed me that. I loved that movie. So I was familiar with the story beats, the storyline, although, you know, John Carpenter's version, this 82 version, is much more faithful to the novella. Yeah. And, you know, in fact, that 51 version really doesn't, it has some resemblance, but not a lot, whereas Carpenter went way back to the source material. And what's really interesting is a guy was writing a biography about Campbell, the guy that wrote this novella. Mm-hmm. And in his research, he actually discovered a full novel, Who Goes There?
Whoa.
And this was in 2019.
Wow.
And in 2019, they did a Kickstarter to publish this novel. And it succeeded, and it's published, and it's called Frozen Hell. And you could go look it up on Amazon and find the full novel of the story.
I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, it literally just recently, this is a thing that just happened. And I know there's talk about remaking The Thing yet again. There was a movie in 2011 that's, sadly, I don't think it's that good, but it has some pieces in place that it could have made it good. And one of the interesting things about the 2010, 2011, I think it's 2011, is the 2011 Thing is a prequel of sorts. And we'll get into where that fits in the story. But as we go into this movie of the 82 version. But that 2011, they did CGI for so much of the stuff, and it just kind of it falls flat. And I discovered recently that the director, they actually did practical effects and filmed it, and the studio made them get rid of it. So the filmmakers of that 2011 were really trying to do what was going on in 82, and the studio meddled in it, and I think it falls flat. So The Thing is like, it has this interesting story. You have the 82 version in between these other two versions of The Thing. But Adam Smith of Empire Magazine, he wrote the following just recently. He said, The Thing is a peerless masterpiece of relentless suspense, retina-wrecking visual excess, and outright nihilistic terror, placing 12 men at an Antarctic station while a shapeshifter takes them over one by one. I think he's right. I think it is a masterpiece. Devin, would you say that? Would you say, yeah, The Thing is a masterpiece? Why would you say that if you do?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is, Jeremy, because of, well, I mean, we're obviously going to unpack this on this episode, but we're talking cast, we're talking locale, we're talking plot. One of the interesting things that sometimes gets lost when we're looking, we take the original black and white version of this, and as with so many black and white horror films of the 1940s and 50s and kind of that Hollywood golden age, some directors do an exceptional job of making use of light and shadows. And I think that this colorized version, the 1982 version, also actually kind of takes a page out of that playbook, and it does a great job with lighting. And really, of course, we have much more intense scenes in this one, in my opinion, but also just kind of, I'm almost scared, Jeremy, to classify this as a horror film because there's so much suspense involved in it. And so when we talk about we're doing Friday the 13th Part 4 next week, like those two films couldn't be further on the horror genre spectrum from one another, in my opinion. Right. Because one is suspense. You may or may not get a surprise. The other one, like as much as I love Jason and all he's brought to my life, Jeremy, fairly predictable. Fairly predictable.
Yeah. Yeah, and Carpenter really struggled with that idea. Like in this 82 version of The Thing, the terror partially comes from you don't know who it is.
Yes.
And it's this unknown. Whereas like the Jason franchise, the Friday the 13th franchise, you have this kind of the classic slasher. You know, you have the villain walking around killing everybody. You know who it is. And when Carpenter saw the movie poster that's so famous where it's the figure with the light coming out of his face, Carpenter was actually crestfallen. He was like, no, they're not getting what we're trying to do with the thing. In fact, there was some marketing. Poltergeist was out around the same time. I think it came out a month prior. And we'll talk about 82 definitely next year. For those of you that don't know, next year is every pop culture thing we do is about 1982, which is going to be a lot of fun. But, you know, that summer was wild. Poltergeist was out, but the marketing for Poltergeist was doing a lot of black and white, kind of edgy, different, like poster advertising. And the Thing was doing that as well. And there was one image that Carpenter really loved that had multiple kind of like jaws coming down on the Antarctic station. And, I think the studio was like, nope, we're not doing that. It's too much like Poltergeist. Poltergeist was doing some similar stuff with color scheme. And it's just like poor Carpenter because, dude, the movie was panned. And, I mean, people just destroyed it. David Hansen of Newsweek called it an example of the new aesthetic, atrocity for atrocity's sake. Alan Spencer for Starlog contended that, listen to this, John Carpenter was never meant to direct science fiction horror movies.
Wow.
He's better suited to direct traffic accidents, train wrecks, and public floggings.
Whoa.
So it's like the movie just gets generally panned. It barely made its money back. I think it had a budget of $14 million, made $19 million domestically. It wasn't until later that it kind of caught on and people started to say, wait a minute, there's something more here with this movie. I don't know about you. There's something that movie lovers have in them that they love discovering things that no one else likes. And then all of a sudden it becomes popular again. But I don't know. Do you think it makes the Thing more appealing or compelling to just movie lovers that it didn't become a hit right away, but that it's the estimation of its brilliance keeps growing over time? I mean, is that something we should consider?
Well, I think my first response to that, Jeremy, is it's a lot like my days of playing high school football. The further removed I am from that, the better I was, Jeremy.
Yes, you're a brilliant star, Devin.
And I'm surrounded in my trophy room to prove that, people. Well, so here's what actually I equate it to, right? Is there was a time, Jeremy, and for some of our younger listeners, you may have to go to the Google to better understand what I'm about to tell you. So if, younger listeners, you're on the treadmill, you're driving, you want to pull over, you want to push pause on the treadmill. Jeremy, there was a time in this here world that this little computer company called Apple. Apple computers it was such a small market segment, and people that owned Apple knew the brilliance and loved them. But the greater part of the world kind of like called Apple people snobs, and they were fine with their Windows PCs and all that. And then all of a sudden we look at the behemoth that Apple is now, and everyone's got one. And I think it's very much the same thing. There was a dedicated group that loved this movie, that knew its brilliance, that like went to it as its go-to Halloween movie viewing party thing. And eventually over time, and I'm sure obviously some of this has to do with access on DVD and the ability for replays on things like, I'm going to go to it again, TBS and TNT. And eventually, like, it gathers a following, and that following continues to grow into throngs and throngs. And it's at the top of the list. I think you said earlier it's probably top 2 for you, and I would easily put it at top 2 for me.
Yeah, it's wonderful. The cast is wonderful.
Yes.
You got Kurt Russell, McCready, Keith David Childs, which he would later go on to be sort of the central, one of the central characters in They Live, which is we have to do that at some point.
Yes.
And you have Wilford Brimley. What's going on as Dr. Blair?
Yep.
But, you have like all these great character actors playing characters like Dr., Copper, and you have Knowles and Palmer and Clark, the dog handler.
Yes.
In fact, the guy, Richard Masser, who played Clark, he turned down a role in E.T. because it wasn't as big as the role in The Thing, which is really fascinating. He could have not even been in the film. So, you have all this cast, but there was other considerations going on when they were trying to get this movie put together. Nick Nolte turned down the role of MacReady. Jeff Bridges did too. When the script was written, Harrison Ford and Clint Eastwood were both considered for MacReady. I don't know if I should ask this question, Devin.
Okay.
Because it's dangerous.
Yeah.
But why? What the hell? Is there a better version of this movie out there somewhere with a different cast, or is this perfection?
Well, I mean, let me first answer that by answering this. It would be interesting on some level to have Clint Eastwood in the role that Kurt Russell has brought to fame. However, Jeremy, we know that Clint Eastwood's decision to make that 1982 stellar film Firefox was clearly the right decision for his career path. Yes. Why are we not breaking down that film? We need to break down that film.
It'll be a Patreon podcast.
Yes.
It's funny. I of those names, Ford was the most intriguing to me. Not only because he's like one of my favorite actors ever, but I can actually kind of see him in the movie. At that time in his career. I think later Ford and Ford would he could probably at that point in his career, he was making Blade Runner around this time. So he was kind of involved in that project, but this was a time in Ford's career where he would take risks and do some interesting things that were not the standard tentpole stuff, like the Indiana Jones. He would go off and do a Frantic or a Presumed Innocent or of course Blade Runner, which is amazing film at the same time, and so he's interesting to me. But when all the chips are on the table, I will stick with this cast 100 times out of 100 times. I even find it interesting that it's all male. They did have a female in the film. She was pregnant, had to leave the project, and they just recast her with a man. So the only women in the movie at all is, I think, the captain is watching, Gary is watching, a game show, and you see female contestants on the game show,
right?
And then MacReady plays chess, like a computer chess, and the voice is female.
That's
great it.
Adrienne Barbeau in an uncredited voice role.
And I wouldn't mind her being in the movie. That's all I'll say. I'll just leave it there.
Wow.
Big fan of The Fog. She can talk to me anytime. But that's it. So I'm okay with that. I think it lends oddly some credibility, these men at this research station. And there's something about just the cast, these 12 guys, the horror of it all. I find it super compelling, and I find this cast pitch perfect. It's one of the best cast films of this time period. I don't know. What are your thoughts about the cast, Devin?
Look, first off, I'm in total agreement with you. I think some of the subtle brilliance of the casting is this. When we talk about some of the other folks in there, the Harrison Fords, the Clint Eastwoods, would it be interesting? Could they have done a great job? Perhaps. I'm in agreement with you. Then I think Harrison Ford is much more of a compelling choice than Clint Eastwood. However, I'll say this. One of the things that I think would have worked against the film, especially with Clint Eastwood's history in Westerns, especially where Harrison Ford was in his fame with Star Wars and the birth of the Indiana Jones series. I kind of like the fact that these are not big named actors. I think that actually, of course, Kurt Russell is a name unto himself, but I think ultimately we have a lot of recognizable people that most folks would say I recognize that guy, but I wouldn't be able to put a name with him. And I think that really pays off in this particular situation.
Absolutely, especially with the theme of paranoia.
Yes.
And if you were latching on to Kurt Russell as the film goes on, it's there are moments where you question that.
Yep.
And because he wasn't as famous as he will later become,
right?
I think it lends, like you said, some credibility to the film where you're not sure who to hitch your ride to.
Right.
You don't know who's not the thing.
Right.
And I think that pays off. And if they ever make it again, I think they need to do the same thing. Don't get stars.
Right.
Get great actors.
Yep.
And put them in these roles and let the audience guess.
Yes.
And guess who the thing is. And I think it would just pay off.
Well, that and I think this is when, let me give you a little tip of the cap to another horror film from the 90s, and that is Scream, where we've got Drew Barrymore as the A-list celeb that's on all the posters, and she's off within like the first couple minutes of the film, and I like that was so well done because that was such a system shock to viewers. Then I could see that going, but I'm with you though. Well, first, like, do we need to remake this? I kind of push back against that in and of itself, but with you on that,
rightfully so. Oh, well, let's live in the past a little bit with The Thing. You know, what a start to a movie. Let me set the stage for our listeners here. So, in outer space, flying saucer careens into Earth's atmosphere, and then it flashes to Antarctica, winter 82. A man is riding in a helicopter, and he leans out, starts shooting a rifle at a dog that's running across the snow-covered terrain. The animal escapes harm, and then it flashes to this United States National Science Institute Station 4, and there you're introduced to McReady and some of the other characters. The dog comes into the camp, helicopter lands, and just mayhem ensues. The dog is dodging explosives. The gunman goes to grenades, which he happened to have.
Yes.
He loses the grip on one. It blows up the helicopter, kills the pilot. The gunman who's trying to kill this poor dog opens fire fully auto, hits one of the Americans, and Gary's had enough. He pulls out his revolver and blows away this Norwegian gunman.
Right.
Holy shit, what a start to a film.
Yes.
When I saw it the first time, I was like, I'm in love. What am I watching? Because it was amazing.
Which is quite the contrary emotion that I had, because when I saw that, I was like, why are they killing the dog? Why are they shooting at the dog? Run, dog, run!
Hey, well, and that's the thing, right? It's no pun intended. But, like, you know, that's what makes this so great early on, is that as an audience, typically, if an animal is being harmed by humans, we immediately gravitate toward the animal.
Yeah.
And so immediately,
in fact, I heard Michael Vick was an incrable fan of the beginning of
He just played the opening on loop.
Picking up fans from PETA.
And just wait to the latter scene. It's like, get him, Thing, get him. So, you know, you have this open. We gravitate toward the dog. The dog's, you know, jumping into, I think it's Gary's arms after he blows away the guy. You know, but man, talk about piquing curiosity. It's like, what is happening? And I think that's a great way to start the film. There's this mystery to it. They get safety restored. They extinguish the blazing helicopter. McReady, played by Kurt Russell, he discovers later, like, it had all these cans of kerosene. There's an on-site physician, Dr. Copper. He bandages up Bennings, who was shot, and he helps him. And they just start trying to figure out what is going on. Window's the operator, the radio operator. He's trying to report the incident. But then they start to piece things together. And this is what I love about the early part of the movie. They're like, okay, these guys are from this Norwegian research base not far away. Can we fly there to see what's going on? And Mac, McReady, and Doc, they end up going to the station. And I don't know about you, but I think one of the great aspects of horror storytelling, when it's done excellently, and I think you see this with Alien too, which was a few years earlier, is there's an element of mystery. Like in Alien, you see the ship, the engineer's ship that we later discovers the engineer's ship. But you find the ship, there's some giant creature, there's eggs in it. There's so much mystery. You don't really find any answers.
Yeah.
And with the beginning of The Thing, as they're starting to piece all this together, there's these same mysteries. They find the station in total disarray. They discover a bloody axe. There's mutilated and frozen corpse of one of the people that's there. You see someone had slit their wrists and it's frozen. They find that large, which I love, and this is a callback to the 51 version, the large hollowed out block of ice.
Yeah.
You know, you see all these things. They find these gnarled remains, and it's disgusting.
Yes.
But there's like a human face in it. Is the mystery one of the best things about the first like act of the film, Devin?
Clearly, without question. I think that that's one of the things that throughout this film makes it so brilliant and so beloved by folks is it's the mystery. And again, I'll just go back to the slasher films of this era that there's no mystery involved.
Right.
And not that there's anything wrong with that per se. It serves its purpose. It can be good fun. But I think, and the other part of this, though, Jeremy, is it's not just suspense from a horror standpoint, but I mean, I think this film also could very well, I'm going to get some people adding me now, but I think that this film can also kind of border on that science fiction part of things.
Right.
And I love that there's that mixture in there, and that I think that's really what keeps me coming back to this movie is, however, what are we like? Public school. I'm trying to do the math here. 40 years later.
Yeah, almost 40 years,
Like, it's still new to me and still has those jump moments to me, even though I know what's coming.
Yeah, it's the mystery just builds and builds, and something's wrong when you see the Norwegian base. Something bad is wrong.
Yeah.
And, you go from there back to the research facility, the American one.
Yep.
And you have Clark getting involved with the dogs. He locks up the new dog with this new dog that survived the attack with his dog pack. But man, in one of the most chilling scenes of the movie for me, and I think it goes back to my love of animals.
Yeah.
You see the dog start moaning and shaking.
Yeah.
The other dogs start getting really freaked out.
Yep.
Its face splits open, tentacles sprout from its body.
Yes.
One of the dogs, and Carpenter even commented on how amazed he was at the dogs acting in the movie. Because there's even one scene where the Thing dog, before Clark puts it away, is wandering through the station.
Yeah.
And, it's just like Carpenter was like, they did it in like 4 takes.
Wow.
With this dog.
Wow.
And he was just like, he was really amazed as a filmmaker with just how well the trainers had trained these animals. And you have the one in the scene trying to gnaw its way through the chain fence. It's tearing its way out.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see animals provide terror and suspense, which is normally what humans do. Like the animals are really an amazing character in the early part of this film. And so Clark hears what's going on. He starts to run to see what's going on. He goes to the door, and then he sees this violent horror story.
Yes.
Mac McReady arrives. Child shows up. They watch this creature lash out its tentacles at the remaining dogs. They fire at it. They shoot it. They wound the creature. They kill the remaining dogs.
Yep.
And then Child shows up with a flamethrower, torches the creature, which freaking sprouts arms.
Yes. Hello.
And I remember watching this. And it's the body horror stuff, right? It's just so disgusting and terrifying. And I think the practical effects really lend to it. But man, I don't know about you. You see the terror, but then the suspicion starts to happen because they're questioning Clark, and Blair learns that the creature, while disguised as a dog, wandered freely around the camp, and that Clark was alone for an hour. And this is where I think this is the first time the seed of like suspicion, paranoia plants, because Blair is like totally suspicious, and he just says, it's probably nothing. But the die has been cast at that point.
Right.
And so this is the horror of it coupled with the beginning of paranoia. I just find this opening sequence of the horror to be amazing. What, Devin, for you, like, how did you react to that scene? What is it about this scene that's so unnerving to you? I would love to hear just your thoughts on when you first saw it, but just how you reflect back on it.
Well, let me start with that in reverse. I mean, I reflect back on it, and now in midlife, Jeremy, I think like, I've had nights where I've eaten Mexican food where I've had that kind of feeling gurgle up within me, and was pretty convinced that something was going to come out. That being said, dear listener, so here's what I think is so alarming and wonderful about this movie, and that is it's it's a cornucopia of guesses as to what we're going to get each time the thing transforms, right? And I think that it's, again, using other horror movies as a reference point. We know what Freddy looks like. We know what Jason looks like. We know what we know what the dude in Saw looks like, and Candyman. But what we never, ever, ever, ever know in the thing is what the fuck this thing is going to look like. And I think this weird amalgamation of things, heads and arms and insects and dogs and humans, and I think it's so perplexing and bold, and like it's so captivating at the same time. And I think that's one of the things that makes this film work. And so going back to your question, like, what did I think about this, like the first viewing at Scott Odell's birthday party? I think that it was just that. It was like, what is happening? And, as we look at things, whether it's art or it could even be patterns on drywall or whatever, the human mind is kind of wired to pick out faces, right? Which is why we have things like the man in the moon and things like that. Our mind tries to see faces and things. And so when we have that hardwired into our DNA as humans, and we see what we see on the screen with the thing, it really does a number on our brain. And I think that whether that was by strict design or just the creature effects department wanting to get as wild and crazy as they could, it is a fantastic cocktail. And I just remember being just like so, just like the proverbial, like I'm scared and disgusted, but I can't look away. I can't look away.
Yeah. Yeah. And the sounds the dogs are making are just terrifying.
Yes.
And the sound editor, Colin Muat, he locked his dog. He had a bunch of dogs, rounded up all the neighborhood dogs, locked them up in his house, put on a black trench coat, and walked around banging on windows and doors, and he had it all mic'd up. And so all the frightening like stuff that the sounds is like, this dude's like legitimately frightening dogs, and you just gotta love sound effects people, because they will go the extra mile.
That is dedication to the craft right there. Wow.
Yeah, Terrence Bowman, who wrote for Den of Geek back about 10 years ago, he wrote the following. And this is, I want to talk a little bit about theme, because there's a lot more going on to the movie than just, there's a scary monster, alien, whatever, that's absorbing people. And Terrence Bowman wrote, he goes, "For one thing, MacReady and the other characters are pretty much only concerned with their own survival and self-preservation. Not only is protecting the rest of the world a secondary consideration, but so is protecting the other members of the crew. With a creature so deadly and so evasive, it becomes every man for himself pretty quickly."
Yeah.
And then I think rightfully so, Bowman writes, who's the bigger threat? The monster or the other people? And, obviously in 1982, the thing was not well received. We read some of the critics' responses to it. It didn't make a ton of money. It was caught in the wash of like the summer of 82 with your E.T.s and your Poltergeists and other big hits.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't catch, but then later it does. And I think even today when I've told the film, I've referred to the film and I've had students that I've taught go see it, and people come back to me and they go, "I love it." I wonder if it is because it's in this post 9/11 world where you have the unknown among us, whether it's a terrorist that's going to blow up something. That's obviously a fear in our culture. But then I think in the world of shootings, where you have school shootings or places of business shootings, where it's someone you know, someone you work with that all of a sudden turns on you. I think those ideas you see in the thing, and I wonder if that's probably why that might be a pretty big contributing factor why so many people appreciate, and I would go so far to even say they like the movie because of these things. And I also think it taps into our own fear on a deep, visceral level.
Clearly.
Is this why it's becoming such a favorite of the horror suspense genre, Devin? Is that it? Am I onto something, or is it something else?
Well, I don't know if you're onto something. I know that you are on something. But
just wait.
Just kicking in. Just kidding. Yeah.
Kicking in.
That would be a challenge, Jeremy. Can we do like a Patreon? Let's have an edible and watch the thing together. Maybe that's the ultimate Patreon episode. Anyway,
well, you could do that in California. I would have to go to Colorado or somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Alabama, they don't do that here.
No. All right. So back to your question. Yeah. I think that there is something beautiful about that, right? When, as far as the harmony of the themes within the thing and what we're seeing in our modern culture today. Yes, because it's not even so much about like, is the person next door a terrorist or a spy or whatever else, but we are so divided as a fucking culture right now, Jeremy, over the dumbest things. And I think that, yes, we are so suspicious, and we are not only suspicious, we are so ready to condemn everyone and point the finger. Right. And I think that that's really the paranoia. I don't know if it has been this high since like the McCarthy era. I really don't. And we might, and because of social media, it might even be higher now than it was before.
Right. Yeah. Right. And I don't know, man. I think the thing is the movie, the 82 movie is something that I think could be used to actually, and this is what's so amazing about art, but specifically the film, the world of movies, is that it gives you an opportunity to have conversations about things that you're really dealing with today. And damn, I think the thing can do that with some of the issues we're dealing with, where we don't trust each other. There's paranoia. The lengths these guys go to take each other out.
Yeah.
The lack of trust. I mean, gosh, at one point, Child's just like, I think he cuts McReady loose out in the snow. I think that was who, like, but then you have like McReady shoots Clark in the head at one point, and Clark wasn't even the thing.
Yeah.
And so you just have this it's just insanity what they're doing for self-preservation. They won't help each other, but there is this just terrifying unknown. In the movie, you go from the horror of the dog scene to these guys piecing together everything. So they start going through the Norwegians' video materials, and they actually find an excavation site. And so Mac, a small team, they fly out there. They find this excavated flying saucer, and they estimate that it crashed 100,000 years ago. So you realize that scene at the very beginning, that was 100,000 years before 1982.
Right.
And, Mac reports the trip's findings. And this is where I love the science fiction part of it, because Blair privately runs a computer simulation of the creatures, like how he absorbs, the timing of the absorption process.
Right.
And, he starts piecing it together, and the simulation gives him like a few data points. One is that there's a 75% chance that one or more of the people there at the facility are the thing, which, oh gosh, that doesn't help anything.
No.
But it would take 27,000 hours for the entire world to become infected if this organism gets away. Yeah. And I love the stakes, Devin, of that. Like we're screwed, and then we're really screwed, not only like on an individual level, but on a worldwide level. And then you just start to see and this is what Carpenter does so brilliantly, is he couples like data information with horror. So it'll be like story beat horror, mystery, trying to solve the mystery, horror. And he does that here because Blair starts to freak out. He locks himself away. He refuses to answer the door. The team learns through Blair's notes that there's still cellular activity in the creature's remains.
What?
And then you have just a horrific moment where Windows returns to the storeroom. He finds the thing alive, and in the process of absorbing Bennings, Windows runs for help. He returns to the storeroom with Max and Fuchs, and Bennings is like the thing as Bennings is running out of the facility into the snow.
Right.
They catch it, and the hair on the back of my neck still stands up when Bennings bellows. They catch it, and it bellows this horrible thing.
Yeah.
And then Mac, they torch it with a flamethrower. And
yes.
Devin, I don't know about you. Thank God for flamethrowers. I have a big question, but first, what do you think about that whole sequence, the Bennings stuff, where he's like, the thing is Bennings, the scream, the horror, it's a great scene.
It's an amazing cocktail of visuals, of sound, and certainly what it provokes emotion-wise. But I want to ask this, though, because let's go back to the little Norwegian discovery. Do you think that in any way detracts from the film, that there's this origin? Is it any more suspenseful, or does it? We go back, we talk about mystery, which you led the episode with. Do we have a greater mystery if we're left as viewers wondering, what, how did this even happen to begin with?
Right. It's the one area of the movie that I personally think you could cut, and it might strengthen the movie as a whole.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about I'm okay with the initial going to the Norwegian base, but then going to the UFO.
Right.
Maybe if there's a mention of it, there's some notes here that they found something in the ice, something like that.
Yeah.
That I like. Again, it taps into that mystery that really can stir up an audience.
Yes.
And stir up their imaginations. And sometimes it's a thing where it's what we're imagining.
Right.
That scares us more than the reality of the situation. And so for me, just as a viewer, and this is super nitpicky, because I think as an audience, you do want to find out.
Of course.
And so it is paying off something for you.
Yeah.
But I think there is a part of me that I'm like, man, if you cut that, it might just add the type of mystery that really stirs up an audience in a good way. Well,
and we've talked before on this and other podcasts about the brilliance of what Spielberg did with Jaws is that we don't exactly see the shark until those last moments. And it's that suspense. It's the what if. It's what's around the corner or beneath the water or whatever else. And I think that this is, like you said, is it nitpicky? Totally nitpicky, because obviously the film is brilliant and I love it. And at the same time, I think especially as a middle-aged dude, middle-aged white dude syndrome, that I really do think that could turn this film into an 11 out of 10 if we cut that, because then we're just completely stymied about, well, where did this come from? Let alone how do we kill it, but where does it come from? And so I don't know. I get it. That's just me. That's being nitpicky. But yes, back to your question, flamethrowers. Listen, Jeremy, you can identify with this as well, I'm sure. As someone who has had to read really crappy student essays for the past 20 or so years, flamethrowers would be wonderful to wipe them out in one fell swoop and save so much time grading and really mourning tomorrow's generation, Jeremy. So yes, I'm a fan of the flamethrower.
Yeah, fire cleanses. And it's interesting. You see it in Aliens, flamethrowers. Obviously the thing, flamethrowers. Yeah. Even though fire is just a metaphor for cleansing. The last Halloween film in 2018. I know there's a new one coming out, but you have fire in that where Jamie Lee Curtis uses fire to great effect on Michael.
Beavis and Butthead were not wrong, Jeremy. Fire.
I love it. I love that I guess you could call it a trope, but it's the only thing that fire runs throughout the film, and especially at the end where the fire's dying out and there's the fire's dying out, we ain't gonna last much longer. It's it's the thing that can save you, but it's the thing that you don't have unlimited quantities of, and that's even scary in of itself. And so going back to the fire idea and the thing, so the team cremates the remains in a makeshift fire pit. Fuchs reports that Blair is missing, which good God, you can't have that happen.
Right.
Max spots Blair running from the Institute's helicopter with an axe in his hand.
Naturally.
And so it's like, which Blair is doing this? Is this the thing Blair, or is it Blair? And so they retreat inside. The armed Blair threatens to shoot anyone who tries to stop his destruction of the Institute's communication equipment. This is when they kind of grab Blair, and they realize that Blair's disabled the tractor, killed the dogs that remained. And he's like, we got to stop this. We cannot let the thing spread. So they're like, throw Blair in the tool shed. And then Blair, damn it, he had to do this. He's like, watch Clark, the dog handler. And it's like, that's the scene where later McCready will kill Clark. And it's just like, oh my gosh, he sets all these events in motion. So they go to find, they want to test each other's blood to determine who's infected. They stored their blood, so they find that the supply of clean blood they need to perform the test has been emptied. And the lock on the refrigerator where the blood is stored is unbroken, indicated whoever did it had a key. Great. They make Doc and Gary the prime suspects. And here we go again, Devin. You have all these accusations. Gary says, all right, Mac, you're it. He claims his innocence. And then you have just craziness happen. And this is where...
because craziness wasn't happening before, Jeremy.
Right. I mean, but this is where, someone kills the electricity.
Right.
Fuchs stumbles in the dark, and this is, there's a figure that passes by. And I think this is where the thing is at its best, because everything is so uncertain. They're questioning each other. You don't know who's it. And there even becomes a point where you're sort of latching onto McCready, but then you're like, he might be the thing. They might be pulling the rug out from under me. Devin, the cast is working beautifully like an orchestra together.
Yep.
But for you, is there a standout in the cast, or is it absolutely not? You need this whole cast for this to work. How do you see the cast?
I think you need the cast to make this work, right? And they're working in such harmony here. It's and the way that it. By the way, we haven't even talked about how the film is edited, which is brilliant.
Yes,
but I think that this is rightly so. This is where things like start to get super, super interesting. And here's my only my wonder, Jeremy. We do want to kind of, I guess, find comfort with Kurt Russell's character, and at the same time, I don't know, does the movie gain anything the less comfortable we feel with McCready?
I personally think the movie is at its apex when you don't know what's up.
Yeah.
When you don't know who, when you really start to question McCready, because it is your last safety blanket.
Right.
Because normally in a horror film, you'll latch onto a character and it sort of becomes your avatar, right? And it could screw you if that character gets killed, but and then you'll just find the next one.
Yeah.
What Carpenter does so brilliantly with the thing, and this is why I think it is set apart as a horror film, is that you have a moment where you don't know who to trust, you don't know who to follow, believe in, cheer for.
Right.
It's nihilistic in that sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually where the real terror comes in.
Yeah.
Because you know what the stakes are as a viewer. You know that if the thing wins, the world is doomed.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, well maybe McCready can come through here because I'm hitching my wagon to him.
Yeah.
And you start to reach a moment where you're just not sure. And that begins to happen really in earnest here. And because you have so what happened, outside the lab, Fuchs finds the shredded jacket with McCready. And one of the things that they had discovered in the film is that that's what the thing does, because it's mutating and it's absorbing this other person, so it rips their clothing.
Right.
And so Fuchs finds that. Mac is still kind of being Mac. He's questioning the group about the blackout because power went out. Yeah. And they organize search teams to look for Fuchs, who's now missing.
Right.
And after checking on Blair, McCready, Knowles, and Windows discover what appears to be Fuchs' burned remains outside in the snow. And so you're like, wait, what's going on here? And then Mac observes that the lights on his shack are on. And, great line in the movie. You have, he sees it. And I think it goes something like, let me see if I can find it, where he basically says, I need to go up to my office. Why do you need to go over to your office? Because when I left, I turned my lights out, and it's just like, you're just like, no, please don't do that. So
yes,
it's just, it's, Knowles says, where are we going? McCready goes, up to my shack. Knowles, what the hell for? And McCready, because when I left yesterday, I turned the lights off and his lights are on. And Devin, that's one thing we haven't really talked about is the writing. Clark, the dog handler earlier in the film, says about the dogs and them going crazy. He's like, I don't know what the hell's in there, but it's weird and pissed off, whatever it is. It's just the delivery of the lines, the writing of the lines.
Yeah.
I love the writing of this film, Devin. It's a great script, isn't it?
Well, and we've talked about Kurt Russell before, of course, when we talked about Big Trouble in Little China, and
yes,
and we go back to our earlier conversation about casting. I don't know that some of the names that were listed as potential actors for this role could have pulled it off as well. There's just something about a Kurt Russell delivery of one-liners that is just it's chef's kiss, Jeremy, chef's kiss. Yes.
Yeah. Like the great line where the thing roars at him and he goes, well, fuck you too.
I mean,
it's just,
it's
just brilliant.
Yeah.
Because that's what the audience is feeling. We're like, we're at that point too.
We're exhausted. We're done.
We are done. So Mac observes that the lights of the shack are on. He sends Windows to report the news to the team. He and Knowles go to the shack. Mac and Knowles are missing 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And this is when Childs, who, by the way, is just is amazing character. I love Childs in this movie. Childs is like, well, we need to we're going to seal the effing doors. We're done with this.
Right.
But Knowles returns before all the doors are sealed.
Yeah.
He informs the team that he cut Mac loose from the guideline. Yeah. And it stranded him out in the blizzard. And he was the one that found the shredded jacket. And so most of the team is like, yep, he's one of the things. And this is where everything just starts. It's almost like Carpenter reaches to the dial and just turns it up to 11 because Mac hacks his way inside. They find him thinking he's the thing. He's holding a flare and dynamite, threatening to blow up the camp if anyone messes with him.
Yes.
And he forces most of the team back into the hall. And this is where it just goes batshit crazy because they rush him. In the scuffle, Norris is knocked to the ground, and he appears not to be breathing. And this is where it just gets nuts. So they're trying to revive him because he's been knocked to the ground. And Norris's freaking chest splits open. And Doc falls into it. The cavity closes, severs Doc's arms, and at this point, this is where Norris's head falls off.
Yeah.
Sprout's legs, scuttles to the door.
What?
And yes, it's just like Palmer says when the head starts growing legs and walking away, he goes, this is at an hour and 17 minutes in the movie. He goes, you got to be fucking kidding. And as an audience, you're laughing and you're horrified. Yeah. And it's just, this for me, Devin, was the WTF moment of the film. And, I saw this in 84, 85 maybe. I was completely blown away by this scene.
Yeah.
This is what makes it a classic, in my opinion. It's a combination of suspense, paranoia, gross out horror, and phenomenal acting.
Yeah.
Is this when the movie, in your opinion, is hitting its apex? And I think it hits its apex from this point on to the end. This is the moment where it's like, I'm all in. I can't take my eyes away. I'm locked in. How do you feel about this sequence scene?
Well, I mean, Jeremy, this movie, the runtime is an hour, 49 minutes. And it is strap yourselves in. And you are going to hit fuel injection, and that will not slow down for the next 149 minutes. And I think, like, there's something about what you just mentioned as far as the quote, right? That, oh my God, like I thought I had reached apex craziness, and here we go.
Right.
Now we're literally dividing it, and now we have twice the bang for your buck. And I just I think especially as a young viewer, like it's so. I don't want to say over the top in like a bad sense, but it's like I think as viewers, we kind of expect to have like a natural kind of like crescendo. And then there's the moment where we kind of feel like resolution coming. And at no point do we get a sense that like, resolution's coming. Resolution's got to be. Wait, how about now? It's still not. And I think it's this mind job on the viewer, Jeremy, that just says like, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. And every time they say we're not done yet, we're also ratcheting it up, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's almost like Carpenter's like, oh, you thought the knob went to 11?
Yeah,
no, it goes to 12. Oh, you thought 12 was at 13?
Yeah, just toying with us.
He is, and it gets better. I mean, so Mac torches like what's left of Norris.
Yeah,
of course, poor Doc is dead.
Right.
And, so Matt gathers the rest of the team up at gunpoint, ties them up. While that's happening, Clark, who is not the Thing, but thinks, Mac is the Thing, and then vice versa. Clark tries to stab Mac. Mac shoots him in the head, killing him, and then ties everyone up. And this is the blood test scene, where they figured out basically the Thing will respond if it's any part of the Thing, blood, anything. If it's attacked, it will try to protect itself.
Right.
And so they have, let's put some blood in a little
Petri dish or something.
Yeah, Petri dish, and we'll put a heated wire to it, and that's how we'll know. And the suspense of that scene alone, they're all tied up together. McCready is like testing them. And then we get to what I think is my favorite part of the whole movie. Palmer is tested. They find out as they test the blood, Palmer is the Thing. And oh my God, the blood leaps from the dish. Palmer starts transforming. He kills Windows with this bizarre, like his head like bites his like it's just insane.
Yes.
McCready can't get his flamethrower to start. poor the captain is like screaming, tied up to the couch.
Yes.
It's just finally he gets the flames on, burns Palmer. They blow him up with dynamite. They go ahead and torch Windows, who's dead. And you have Mac testing the rest, and one of the best, best lines of the movie is it's like the "get me out of here" line, where it's just like untie me.
Yes. Yes.
It's such an insane scene. It's brilliant horror, and I think this might be my favorite part of the movie. I don't know about you, Devin. How do you respond to all this?
Listen, I mean, if there are images that remain with me from that initial viewing, it's shooting at the dog, blood test scene, and then the actual final scene. And I think that those are so like emblazoned in my mind. Yeah, and this moment, it's peak suspense, and
it's great.
What is among the other things that are so brilliant? We go from suspense and quiet to just a symphony of chaos in just the flip of a switch, and I love it.
Well, Gary's line is just so classic. He's like, I know you gentlemen have been through a lot. When you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of the winter tied to this fucking couch. And it's just, I don't, it's rare that I have a movie where the tension is so horrific and then the laughter of a line comes in and I'm like, all that laughter, like, just causes you to just have a very short moment of relief.
Yeah. Yeah.
But thank God for lines like that, because I don't know if I could survive the movie without moments of brevity where it's like, oh, that's right. I'm watching a movie. This is funny. This is entertaining.
Absolutely. Right. Exactly.
Oh man. It goes from there as we start to wind down the movie. Yeah. They find that Blair has somehow escaped. He's building a flying saucer. Mm-hmm. So good grief. He's building it with like helicopter parts and parts from the facility. So Knowles, basically it comes down to Childs, Knowles, and Mac going after it and going after the thing. And, Blair kills Gary as he's setting the final explosives. Childs also goes missing. And it's basically just Mac alone in the final battle. And he uses his last stick of dynamite. He blows it up, initiates a chain reaction that destroys the rest of the camp. And then, in my opinion, one of the best endings of any horror movie, Childs shows up. And he claims he got lost in the storm while pursuing Blair. And both men sit and drink, realizing that if one of them is the thing, that you can't do anything about it, you're done.
Right.
And the last line, why don't we wait here and see what happens, is...
Oh, my goodness.
It's such a great ending. And, you got just the suspense and the horror, the fear of, like, are they going to get out of here? And then just the total nihilistic... Like, we're screwed. This is it. And we close the movie. We fade to black. It might be, I don't know where this falls for you, Devin, but it's one of my, in any genre, it's one of my 2 to 3 favorite endings of a movie.
Yeah.
I love it. It leaves you scared and uncertain. And your imagination starts to run wild. Like, well, what if they're both human? There was a video game in 2002 that's supposed to tell us what happened. That they actually were both human. And Carpenter signed off on it. So for those of you that are really wanting to know, Carpenter has said that like McCready did survive, Childs did survive. Both were humans. Childs eventually died from the elements. McCready lived. And he's the only one in that cast that actually made it out. So
wow,
there you have it. Video game 2002. The studio that made it, like they folded. They couldn't make the money they needed because they were going to make a sequel. So that's kind of where it was left. But I don't like to think about that. I like to speculate, and
totally.
I think Childs is the thing. That's how I leave it. But
that's your headcanon right there.
That's my headcanon. What about you, Devin? Like, where does this ending stack up for you? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Is McCready or Childs the thing?
I think it. I would be disappointed, right? Like, let's put the whole video game thing on its shelf. I would be disappointed if all of a sudden a film where we had no effing idea what was going on all of a sudden brought resolution to stuff. We need to leave without resolution. And I think that, going back to one of the questions you asked at the top of the episode, like, why has this grown in popularity? Why is this such a classic? I think that's part of it, is because from start to finish, we're completely kept in the dark. And I think that it would have been a shame, and I don't know, it would probably obviously still have popularity, but I think like the ending to a film in so many ways can either make or break a film, and not just with The Thing, but so many films. And I think that this was the perfect ending for this film.
Right. I totally agree. It's such a great movie, and it's such a it just stands the test of time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to watch it tonight with my son. I cannot wait.
Man,
and,
you may have to
watch him watch it.
Film that for the Patreon only. It's like the Sam reaction cam.
I might do that. I might do that for the patrons. Sam wouldn't mind. Let's do There Could Be Only One, our favorite thing about the thing.
There can be only one.
All right, Devin. What's the single best thing about this movie? Character, moment, scene, line, theme, song? What's the best thing about the movie, The Thing?
Well, I hate to steal your thunder, Jeremy, but it's no surprise here. It is the blood testing scene.
Yes.
I will just say there's part of me, especially, we talked about how this film may relate to present day. There's parts of me when I'm getting the big swab up my nose for COVID tests, and I'm wondering, it's that suspenseful moment. But so far, nothing has leapt out of my chest or split my head in two or anything like that. So that is my pick.
Yeah, mine too. It's the blood test scene. It's that run in the movie where it mix of horror and humor, and it's just a terrifying scene. As a kid, it left such an impression on me. For me, it is probably one of the high watermarks of horror, because I saw it when I was a fourth grader, and it just imprinted on my brain. Just absolute terror. I love it. To this day, I when I watch it, I have little flashes where I remember how it felt when I was a little kid, and I just love that. I love that moment. Man, what a great movie! It's so fun to do this show when you're doing a true masterpiece like The Thing. Yeah, man, I cannot wait to do more Carpenter stuff. There's a few more movies out there like Halloween that's worth visiting in Carpenter's filmography. Hey, thanks for listening. You can find us on Twitter at Livin the Past, LIVIN the Past. Hey, if you want to help us with mods, help us overcome our syndromes and our difficulties, you can find us at patreon.com/livin in the past, LIVIN the past. Facebook, just like Twitter, that dumpster fire is available to you, facebook.com/livin the past. Hey, next episode on the main show is Friday the 13th, Part 4. And then on Patreon, we have two things for you. Oh. We have the Thing commentary. We're going to try to wrangle up our intern, Carl. And we didn't even talk about this earlier. We were trying to get him for the show, but he got such a big head from it being so successful that I think he's trying to make his own thing happen. So once he fails at that and comes back to us, tail between the legs, we'll bring him on and do the commentary. He has not seen The Thing, so we thought that would be
what? How is that even possible? I'm taking away his Gen X card. I am taking away his Gen X card.
It's revoked. So Friday the 13th, Part 4 is our next main show, and then Patreon, we have the Thing commentary and a What You Talking About episode. That's going to come out pretty closely back to back. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you in a few weeks or sooner if you do Patreon. You can find us right now. Bye.
Peace.